The January jobs report is due any second now. Oh my goodness, it is a strong one. Non-farm payrolls rose by 243,000 last month. That's almost double what people were expecting. The unemployment rate fell to 8.3 from 8.5%. Average hourly earnings increased. Manufacturing payrolls were up. Government payrolls didn't decline as much as thought. I'm sure there will be some flies in the ointment, but for now, let's get reactions from the guys on set. Welcome to the News Hub. I'm Kelly Evans. This is Mean Street columnist Evan Newmark and host and Dennis Berman.
My first thought was, oh my goodness, Obama's definitely going to win. And
always politics on the brain, Dennis?
Well, I mean, this is an election year, and do we not have to view things politically? And
243,000. That's a pretty staggering number.
Right. Expectations were between, I think, 110 and 189. People were expecting maybe even on the low side. So
a slight increase to the December payroll count to 203,000 from 200,000. Just want so people know there are a lot of revisions, a lot of annual revisions, both to the household and the establishment survey that come out this month. So it's a little bit hard to tell a consistent story and compare this just with December, but just taking the numbers at face value, an encouraging way to start the year off.
Dow futures up close to 100 points. I, of course, was thinking of Kelly. I was thinking of Kelly Evans when that number came through, not of the jobs report.
My column was too pessimistic.
No,
this
I was
morning.
thinking of the fact that this will be our final BLS show, Kelly Evans. And so I was focused on something a little more personal than just a blockbuster jobs number that will make the stock market go higher, just as I predicted for a long period of time.
Just so you can gloat
and
about the stock
basically,
market.
I need to gloat.
I just want to lay out a few things for people. Government
time.
payrolls fell by 14,000 last month. That's a little bit less than we've seen in prior months.
Still good.
Yeah, you still have those declines. Just terrible. Private sector payrolls were even higher because of that 257,000. We'll try to pull up the report and see how that stacks up. But one of the strongest reports we've had in a year.
Yes, now let's talk about what this means for the bond market. Now, of course, the Fed has communicated that it's going to keep interest rates low, but people have to start thinking, might there be some tightening eventually?
You don't see the sell-off or the kind of moderation you might expect in the market if they thought that suddenly meant the door was slammed on QE3.
The door is not. No, that is why the stock market's a good place to be right now, because money is still cheap. Yeah, it appears that way. I mean, I still don't understand, and I've said it basically for a year and a half. I still don't understand why anybody, especially with a jobs report like this, would be buying a 10-year bond at 1.8% yield. However, there's still plenty of people who've been buying the securities, so what do I know?
Let's see what the reaction is from Washington, too. Sudeep Reddy is standing by to take a look at this report. Sudeep, again, I'll just repeat for people, 243,000 jobs added in January. That compares with expectations of just 125,000. The unemployment rate now at 8.3%. Your take?
Well, Kelly, if we have a few more numbers like that, we might actually have a trend. And so you're going to see people at the Fed still remaining cautious. But it's going to be clear that we'll see over the next month this layer of discussion about QE3, another round of bond buying coming off, people sounding more hopeful about the tone. We're still pretty far away from getting the kind of numbers you'd need to see for the Fed to even discuss changing its rate guidance in terms of the late 2014 period. So we still have quite a ways to go, even though this is clearly a much better number than anyone had been expecting and hoping for. It's just it's still not enough to considerably change the game just yet on the policy front. On the political front, it certainly lends a lot of credence to the Democrats' improvement story, and it's probably making some people in the Romney camp right now very, very concerned.
Yeah, I want to just mention a couple more nuggets from the report again. In the good sign camp, we have with the average hourly earnings increase, so the income boost there equivalent to if we had added even more jobs to the economy. A good sign, especially because average hourly income growth year on year is still running below 2%, which is typically not all that great. The average work week was unchanged. There was, by the way, no significant improvement in the share of long-term unemployed as a percent of the population. So even as we're seeing improvement here, we're not necessarily fixing that problem as quickly.
And that's going to take a decade or more as we basically transition our economy.
You know, we've talked about this.
Well,
it's a structural
issue.
It's been a structural. It is. You still have. You're not going to see, even if construction spending increases as it has recently, it is unlikely you're going to see a big boom in many of the industries that kind of held the economy together, that being financial services and the construction area. I mean, those areas, there's no reason for those areas to suddenly turn around and do extremely well.
Evan, I don't know why you're so ornery today.
I'm not
just
ornery. I already missed Kelly Evans. What do you mean, why am I ornery? I'm already missing her.
What's interesting is that by the twisted logic of Wall Street, if this suggests that Obama's chances for re-election have improved, a Romney election, I think, would have cheered Wall Street certainly a lot
I
more.
think
And so,
I
by the
don't think
twisted
that-
logic of Wall Street,
I
this
don't-
might actually be
No,
a
no.
negative.
You don't
No,
think tax
no.
rates
Skewed
go
through
up
the
under
political
an
No,
Obama second
situation.
term?
no. By the way, I'm no big fan of Obama, but I think the stock market itself is not pricing in right now the election. Probably doesn't care about it all that much. Is much more focused on the jobs data and the earnings data, and I think we'll turn to the elections come the summer. But by then, it'll be much more. Look, in a booming economy where the Republicans control the Congress, Wall Street is not that unhappy if Barack Obama is still the president of the United States.
But I'd say it would be much happier, however,
Probably.
if Romney
Let's
or
give
even
Sudeep the
Gingrich
last
gets
word
in.
here. Sudeep, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, any reasonable investor is going to choose a booming economy over their political choice in Washington. But we have to remember we saw the same improving trend in early 2010 and early 2011, and all of that fell off pretty quickly due to events elsewhere. And so
Sudeep
we
Reddy,
still don't know this.
Sudeep Reddy,
Good point.
look,
That's a
you
good
know
point.
what?
You gotta admit,
you know
he's
what?
got a point.
You won't be able to, when Kelly's not here, you won't be able to get away with that kind of a Debbie Downer comment.
Sudeep, thank you very much. Let's actually go to Phil Izzo now. He's sitting behind us at the News Hub, tearing through this report. And importantly today, Phil, we're trying to get a sense of the revisions. What are these telling us?
The revisions are mostly almost across the board upwards, saying that job growth was better last year than we originally thought. It was better last month than we originally thought. If you look at the details of the report, across the board, it seems like there's gains. There's a couple of cuts. We've talked in the past about the government having cuts. That still is weighing a bit on growth. They cut about 14,000 jobs this month. There's some cuts in the information sector, some cuts in financial activities. But even in places where we thought there would be some payback, like last month we saw a big jump in couriers and messengers because of the holidays and people, shipping packages and stuff from their online purchases.
And the expectation was that in turn in January would subtract 20,000, 30,000 from the headline figure, and it doesn't
couriers
seem
and
to have
messengers
done so.
subtracted less than 2,000 jobs. So some of those people got hired maybe longer than just the month. So it wasn't all seasonal, that jump we saw last month.
Well, and
which
we
is
know
good
how
news.
highly revised and how volatile this payroll report can be, so it helps when all of the data and all the different bullet points more or less point in the same direction. That may be why we see such a positive reaction from the market.
And if we look at the unemployment rate, that one, like we said, is difficult to compare month to month because they made some big revisions this month. But as you said, there is this issue of people dropping out of the labor force. Now, that doesn't account for everything as we saw through a lot of the data last year. But when you look at, you can compare the rate to itself, and the participation rate is still historically at a really low level.
Right.
Even though we can't compare it to last month, when you compare it to the big picture, there's still a lot of people who are not in the labor force who probably do want jobs.
And a lot of people who are still unemployed for a long period of time. Phil Izzo.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Can I
No
place
problem.
this into a little bit of context? I want to place it into the context, not because I want to demonstrate to people
How great the stock market is.
No. It's just, if you go back a few months, or not even that long ago, you would have expected that all the problems in Europe, which kind of continued through the autumn into December,
Would be pinching now.
would if they were going to have an impact on the economy, they would have impacted in this kind of jobs report.
But it's still only January.
But the point that I would make is, since August, there's been the double dip recession camp, and I think a jobs report like this should put the nail in the coffin, or what's the saying you used?
Yeah,
That
or
sounds right.
Or
Of
it's a
that
sign of the
whole
top, or it's a sign
Oh
that
my
it's going to
God.
get so much
Oh.
harder
Kelly,
from here to do
But
positive
Kelly,
data surprises.
you seem to have a negative outlook. What's your case for why this might be the top? Do you have one?
I will say the twin deleveraging and demographic headwinds will continue to make this recovery a disappointing one. And as encouraging as it is to see this kind of job growth, again, if we have this kind of thing happen for 3-6 months' time, then off to the races we go. But I think there are still troubles in the credit market and conditions broadly that are calling into question sort of the durability of this and whether it really is changing.
I don't think anybody's expecting, a traditional gangbusters economy where by summer the unemployment's rate down at 7.5%. I don't think that is what the expectation is.
People get it by
People
now.
get it by now. They get that the
That's true.
deleveraging is sitting on the economy. They get that.
But for Obama, I'd say getting it under 8.
You really? What got into you? Did you put something in your coffee this morning?